I will go, or I am going, or I will be going, or I will have been going. Oh, continuous tenses cause such a headache for my students. Seriously, I get so many questions about them. So, enough confusion. In this lesson, you are finally going to learn when to use each one so that you can speak English confidently about continuous actions in all the tenses. Are you ready? Hi, I'm Greg and I teach advanced English grammar and pronunciation so you can speak English clearly and understand native speakers easily. And before I can start to explain when to use each continuous tense, first we have to understand what a continuous action is. And basically, a continuous action is an action that is ongoing, or it's in progress at a particular time. And we can use continuous tenses to help us describe these actions. So, for example, imagine you are writing. This is a continuous action. But then imagine you drop your pen. Bam! That is not a continuous action. That is what I call a bam action, because it just bam, it happens. There's no progression or continuation of that action. But writing, it's an ongoing process that happens at a particular time. Now, the general structure for any continuous tense is the verb to be plus the ing form, like writing, reading, going, but of course, depending on the tense, we need to change the verb to be. So in this lesson, we're going to look at how to do that, but most importantly, in which specific situations we have to use each specific tense. Now, before we do that, there's one golden rule that is true for all continuous tenses, and that is a rule regarding stative verbs or state verbs. We don't use the continuous tense with stative verbs. Now, stative verbs are verbs that describe a state and not an action. So some common stative verbs are know, understand, like, hate, have got. They describe a state, like I like football. It's a state. It's not an action. It's not something I do. I'm going to go and like football. No, I know Johnny. He's my friend. I know Johnny. It's not an action. It's just a state. Okay? So, as I said, we do not use these verbs with continuous tenses. We don't say, I am liking football, or I am knowing Johnny, da-da-da-da-da, I'm loving it, as McDonald's says, is actually grammatically incorrect. Okay? One particular question I had from a student last week was this example. I am having a fever. You see, even though the fever is ongoing, you started with a fever last night and you still have a fever or a high temperature the next morning, it's continuous, but you're using the verb have to describe this illness. It's a state. It's not an action. So the correct form here is simply, I have a fever. You're describing your current state or current condition. However, you could say, I'm having such a good time. Here you are describing the action, have a good time. Okay, let's have a look at the 7 continuous tenses. We're going to first do the present, then the future, and then the past. But I'm going to leave one of the future ones until the end. You'll see why. The present continuous. I am going. We use this to describe actions that are happening right now. Actions that are temporary or actions that are developing. So, For example, things that are happening now. I am wearing a t-shirt. I am recording a video. You are watching a video. Okay, these are all things that are happening right now. For temporary things, you could say, my sister is living in Paris. This is not a permanent thing. It's something that will be true for maybe 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, but it's temporary because eventually she will return to her home country. Or I'm renting a car until I buy a new one. Again, I'm renting a car. Maybe this will be true for 1 week or 2 weeks, but it's temporary because soon I'm going to buy a new car. And finally, we use it for processes. For example, my daughters are learning French. That doesn't mean that right now they are in a French class or listening to French music. No, it's just referring to the process that these days, these years, my daughters are learning French. He's planning his next holiday. Again, this might not be something that is happening right now, but this week, maybe, he is planning his next holiday. It's a process which is happening now, or today, or this week, or these days. So we use the present continuous. The future continuous will be going. Now, we use this to describe continuous actions that will or won't be happening at a specific time in the future. For example, we will be eating dinner when your mum arrives tonight. This is a continuous action, eating dinner, that will be true at a specific time in the future. And that specific time is, bam, when your mum arrives. I won't be working on Saturday afternoon. I won't be working. Again, working is a continuous action, and we are saying that that will not be true at a specific moment in the future. And in this case, the specific moment is Saturday afternoon. Now, one of the students inside my daily Quick Fix membership, we have a little section where you can ask me questions. And one of the questions was the difference between I will show and I will be showing you. Okay, now this is a great question. But before I give you the answer, just download today's free PDF. You're going to love it. It comes with a full summary of when and how to use all these continuous tenses. It has loads of examples and a test at the end to make sure that you have mastered all these continuous tenses. And you can download that by scanning the QR code there or clicking the link up there or in the description. Okay, so I will be showing you or I will show you. So let's have a look. I will be showing you how to use the new software during the training session later today. This is something certain and it's more formal, whereas I will show you is just an action that will start and finish in the future. And it doesn't continue, or at least the emphasis is not on the continuous nature of that action. If we say, I will be showing you, then, okay, yes, it's more formal, yes, it's more certain, but we are also focusing and emphasizing the continuous nature of the action to show. It's a very small difference, but it exists. And generally speaking, if you want to emphasize the continuous nature of an action, then use the continuous tense. Yes, there is another future continuous. So you know how in normal English we have the future with will and the future with going to? Well, we can use both will and going to with continuous tenses. So, for example, I will be showing you the new software, or I'm going to be showing you the new software. And we use this version, going to be doing something, in a more conversational, relaxed English. It's also often used for planned actions in the near future, okay, regardless of whether it's formal or informal. For example, at the beginning of this video, I could have said, hello, and in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to use the continuous tenses in English. Okay, it's a planned action. It's a continuous action that is going to be happening in the near future. Should we meet at 7? No, I'm going to be having dinner at that time. Here it sounds more personal and focused on the intent. If I said, no, I will be having dinner at that time, then that is my idea of what will be happening in the future. But if I say, I'm going to be having dinner at that time, it shows intent. That is what I want to be happening at that specific time. She's going to be working late tonight, so she asked me to pick up the kids. She's going to be working late tonight. Again, it's more informal, that is her intent, and we're just using it in a more relaxed setting. Okay, the past continuous. I was going. And we use this to describe continuous actions that happened in the past. And we use it in 3 situations. So number 1, setting the scene in a story in the past. For example, I woke up, the sun was shining, the birds were singing, the kids were playing in the garden, and life was good. Okay, number 2, when the action happens at the same time as something else. For example, I was cleaning while the children were playing in the garden. There are 2 continuous actions which are both happening at the same time in the past. And the third reason we use the past continuous is when a continuous action in the past was interrupted by something else. For example, I was cleaning the house, a continuous action, when, bam, you called. Okay, it was interrupted by another action. The children were eating dinner when, bam, their mum came home. Now, the past continuous is not the same as the simple past. He walked to the pharmacy. That is a completed action in the past. Okay, that happened. He arrived at the pharmacy. But he was walking to the pharmacy when he ran into an old friend. Here, one action, walking to the pharmacy, was interrupted by another action. Oh, he ran into a friend. He met a friend. He saw a friend in the street. Present perfect continuous. Okay, getting a little bit more interesting now. Present perfect continuous is something like I have been going. And this tense is used when we have a continuous action that started in the past and is still true now. Or it can refer to actions that have recently stopped but still have an effect in the present. And we form this using have been or has been plus the verb in the ing form. For example, I have been living in Spain since 2005. In other words, I started the continuous action, living, in 2005, and it's still true now. We have been learning Italian for 3 years. Okay, we started 3 years ago. It's a continuous action, and it's still true now. I'm exhausted because I have been running. I'm not running now, but the effect is still present. I'm still exhausted because the action stopped very, very recently. Okay, past perfect continuous. I had been going. And we use this when we have two actions in the past and one continuous action started before the next one. And we form it using had been plus the verb in the ing form. For example, I had been looking for my wallet for hours before Molly found it. The continuous action, me looking for my wallet, this started in the past and it started before the next action in this sentence, which is Molly found it. Okay, my daughter had been feeling ill all morning, so we took her to the doctor's office. Again, in this sentence, there are two actions in the past and one continuous action, my daughter had been feeling ill, happened before the second action, so we took her to the doctor's. Okay, back to the future. No, not that back to the future. We're going back to the future tenses because the future perfect continuous is similar to the past perfect continuous. So the future perfect continuous, like will have been going. And we use this for an action that will have been happening for a certain period of time at a specific point in the future. For example, in the year 2028, I will have been living in Spain for 15 years. Okay, so it's a prediction of how long a continuous action will have been happening at a specific point in the future. In this case, in 2028. You will have been baking for 3 hours when the guests arrive this evening. Okay, the specific point in the future is here, when the guests arrive this evening. And I am saying that the continuous action of baking will have been happening. You will have been baking for how long? For 3 hours when the guests arrive. Now there's a big question here that I get asked a lot, and that is, what's the difference between you will have been baking for 3 hours or you will have baked for 3 hours? Now, you will have been baking for 3 hours puts the emphasis on the duration, on the length of time, on 3 hours. That's where the emphasis is in this sentence. However, I will have baked for 3 hours. This emphasizes the completion of an action. Okay, so if we use that, I will have baked for 3 hours, we are saying basically the cookies that you have baked are ready to eat. Now earlier in this video, when I was talking about the present continuous tense, there was something I didn't mention, and that is how we can use this tense, the present continuous, to express that something is annoying us. So you really need to be careful with this. You don't want to say one thing and then accidentally say that that thing is annoying you. So I tell you how to do that, how to express that annoyance, and how to avoid doing that. So watch that video next, and if you don't subscribe, you'll miss all my future lessons. So, you know, do yourself a favour. Right, there's your PDF. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.